Hey everybody, I'm going to show you a little bit on how to get started using Sketchpad. The first thing you see when you open the site is probably a bunch of boxes on your screen, and that just means the canvas that you're looking at is transparent, which means anything that you draw on it, you won't see a background. Now, for what we're going to be starting with right now, I'm going to be having you import an image and then use that image to draw on top of. I gave you guys a selection of different emojis you can choose from. You can choose one of your own if you'd like to find one online. However, there are some it's learning for you if you'd like to use them. The first thing I'm going to do is import my image. I'm going to go all the way down till I see the plus sign and it says new when I hover over it. All the way kind of tucked in the corner. Over here I'm going to see over the right hand side, I'll see where it says import. Now after you've already grabbed your image, you can see I have all the ones that are here. I can then select my image and then continue. So say I want to go with the appropriately masked emoji over here. I can click open and it's going to show up on my screen. Now, a very important thing that I want to do right now, as I'm going to basically be recreating this image, I want to go ahead and go to my Layers panel. So if you look at where my mouse is, it's on the right-hand side of my screen. I'm clicking Layers, and I have some options here. I'm actually going to click this little padlock, and what that's going to do is lock that layer so I can't move it. I'm actually going to do the same thing with my background layer here too. Now, because I'm a little bit far out from my screen, I can use my zoom tool to zoom in. Depending on the image you import, you may need to zoom in, you might not need to. That's completely up to you. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is choose a tool to start drawing. There's a ton of different tools you can use in here. If we look on the left-hand side panel, I'm really going to be spending a lot of time over here. Now, when you came into your program, most likely you came in and you saw either the pencil tool automatically show up here, or you saw this feather for the calligraphy tool. There's a lot of different tools here that work really well. I would recommend for the step that we're doing right now, either the pencil tool or the streamer tool. The streamer tool lets you have different widths or weights of line, and you can kind of mess with them here. You can do a similar thing with your pencil tool, making the line thicker, making the line thinner, and I'm just going to kind of stick with the pencil tool. Now, you can see that it's going to have a fill, and you can see that it's going to have an outline. Now, because I want to recreate the image here, well, and I can see that's going to be way too big. Let's make that smaller. Too small. Looks pretty good. Because I want to recreate the image here, I don't want my outline to be black. I can take my eyedropper tool. I can find sort of that color that's right on the edge and grab it. The next thing I'm going to do is jump into my next fill, the color that I kind of want the whole solid image to be. I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool again. This will pick up any color that I see, and I'm just going to pick a middle value. So as you can see when I move my cursor around, it'll pick up the color that's underneath it. So I'm going to grab that sort of middle value here. Got it. Now, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is actually draw. So I'm going to grab my mouse, and you'll see I'm going to kind of try to draw around my circle. Now, if this isn't perfect, please don't worry. I know that we're drawing circles and we're using either our hand on a screen, maybe you're using a mouse, maybe you are super awesome and have a stylus, whatever it happens to be. All right, now I've connected my image. So I have my circle, I have my basic emoji going here, and a cool thing that I can do is now I have that pencil layer. I can turn it off and turn it back on again to see what's in my picture. So if I can't see anything anymore, I can turn that layer off, and then I can do the same thing again for my next thing. So I'm going to grab that same tool, find my new outline color. So I see that it's going to be a dark brown here. Grab that. I'm going to do the same thing with the fill. Grab my eyedropper tool, grab sort of the middle value there. Maybe make that a little lighter because there's not a lot of contrast. Got it? Now, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and trace those images. Starting around the edge. And trace. Turning around the edge. And trace. Now, if I bring back the other layer, you can see that it's there as well. Now, I'm not going to go through this, you know what, I'm going to go through this whole image, but make it sped up for you. So you'll see this speed a lot faster in just a second, and then we'll talk about the next step. Now, you can see that I went through and pretty much painted all my layers in. I can remove the emoji from the background. You can see it's kind of wonky. But we can kind of mess with that and change that around later. I wanted to add more detail though, and I also noticed that it looks like the front part of the mask that I drew needs to move around a little bit. So this is a chance I have to move things around a little bit. When I select different layers or select different things in my layers panel, you can see that it goes to different parts. So if I know I want this part to move ahead, I can click and drag that layer into the front. So now the front part of the mask is actually in front. I can even manipulate things. So I can pull that over a little bit if it looks like it didn't connect enough. Yep, we're recreating something. However, you can still mess with it. As you go through your image, you can make changes, you can make adjustments to what you've drawn. Now, I went through this pretty quick. If I wanted to refine my shape, if I wanted to refine my image, I could certainly do that. I have something basic right now, but the big thing I want to start talking to you guys about is how to mess with these colors a little bit more. If you look at the original, oops, let's turn that back on. If you look at the original picture, let's get that out of there, you'll see that there's a lot of different values on here, and there's a lot of different lights and darks. And there's something really cool we can do in Sketchpad to bring those in. Now, if I know that I have this nice sort of highlight in this area at the top, I can make that happen right in what I've already drawn. So I'm going to go ahead and add this back in. And I'm actually going to go into a new tool. I'm going to go into my brush tool now. My paintbrush tool. Now, if I want to make it nice and light, let's actually take that layer off again. Nope. I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool. I'm not going to have a fill this time. I'm just going to use my outline. And instead of having this darker color here, I'm going to grab that lighter highlight. Now there's a couple cool things in here. It has a blur on it and it gives you the line width, so I can kind of see how that's going to look. Here, I'll hover over something so I can see. I know where that highlight is going to occur. I can even make it a little bit more transparent. Whoops. Turn down that. I can make it lighter, as you guys can see here. I can make it a bit darker. So the opacity is sort of how intense it is. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. This is like if you can see through it or not. Now I'm going to go back to that layer that I want to draw on. This one here. Select the right layer. Now I have a cool option here that says Paint into Layer. What that's going to do is allow me to paint on top of that layer, but only that layer. So once this goes away, you'll see that it disappears behind what I've already drawn. Now, as I start to kind of use this tool, what I can do is continue to modify it, continue to change sizes. I can kind of make areas more intense. I can make areas lighter. I can make areas darker. I can kind of feather things out by changing that opacity. So I'm creating this nice gradual shadow here. And kind of feathering it out like I would if I was really using paint. Now I can do the same thing with the bottom. I can turn off that layer again. Wrong layer. And I can grab my other color. So instead of the lighter color that I was just using, I can grab the darker one. Turn that on up a little bit. Bring back my layer. Now, if you make a mistake, you can definitely delete what you've done and start over. If all else fails, turn this opacity down. Wider. And you can do things more gradually. You don't have to jump into it super fast. You can kind of continue to build color, just like we would if we were using watercolors. Let's get the right layer here. And start slow and move through. Now, you can see where I'm starting to build those color layers, build all that nice stuff. I'm going to continue doing it right now. All right, so in the end, you can see my outline is a little wonky, which using a different tool might help me fix that up. However, you know, guys, what we're working with right now, you're most likely, again, using your touch screen. You might be using a mouse. Please don't worry if your lines aren't totally perfect. When you're going to be tracing your own drawing lines, it's not going to be something as precise as an emoji. However, this should give you some good practice in tracing lines with that pencil tool, as well as using the brush tool to mimic different values. Hope you have a good time, and please don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions. Thanks so much.